and girls, I'm ready to read version 2 of Little Red Riding Hood. This one is written or retold, because remember the Brothers Grimm were the authors who came up with this story long ago. James Marshall is retelling it here, and James Marshall is the author and illustrator of many books, including Miss Nelson is Missing, if you remember that one. So this is just called Red Riding Hood, and I want you to think about how it is the same and how it's different from the one that I read to you before. So we're going to do a little comparing and contrasting. A long time ago, in a simple cottage beside the deep, dark woods, there lived a pretty child called Red Riding Hood. She was kind and considerate, and everybody loved her. One afternoon, Red Riding Hood's mother called to her. "Granny isn't feeling up to snuff today," she said, "so I've baked her favorite custard as a little surprise. Be a good girl and take it to her, will you?" Red Riding Hood was delighted. She loved going to Granny's, even though it meant crossing the deep, dark woods. Now, maybe you heard something new here describing how Granny feels. Granny isn't feeling up to snuff today. Now, from what you know about this story, I'm sure you can guess what up to snuff means. If you think it means she wasn't feeling well, she was feeling sick, you are correct. So next time you don't feel good, you can tell your mom, "I'm not feeling up to snuff today." When the custard had cooled, Red Riding Hood's mother wrapped it up and put it in a basket. "Now, whatever you do," she said, "go straight to Granny's. Do not tarry. Do not speak to any strangers." "Yes, Mama," said Red Riding Hood. See, I love how we get to learn new words. What was that word right there? Do not tarry. Do not speak to any strangers. What do you think tarry means? She's telling her to go. Okay, you know the story. So if you guess that it means don't, get distracted on the road, don't slow down, don't wander off, that's what it means. Tarry means to slow down and not to get somewhere quickly. So she wants her to go straight to her grandma's house. Before long, she was in the deepest part of the woods. "Ooh," she said, "this is scary." Now, do you remember in the other version if Little Red Riding Hood was acting scared? If she felt scared or if the author said anything about feeling scared? Uh-oh. Look who I see. Dun, dun, dun. So that's a sneaky illustrator. The text didn't say anything about the big bad wolf. You have to look really carefully at the illustrations, and there you see them. Suddenly, a large wolf appeared. "Good afternoon, my dear," he said. "Care to stop for a little chat?" "Oh, gracious me," said Red Riding Hood. "Mama said not to speak to any strangers." Now we know he's going to be sly and sneaky, so let's see what he says to get Red Riding Hood to tarry. But the wolf had such charming manners. "Oh, where are you going, sweet thing?" he said. "Oh, I'm on my way to visit Granny, who lives in the pretty yellow house on the other side of the woods," said Red Riding Hood. "She's feeling poorly. I'm taking her a surprise." "You don't say," said the wolf. Just then he had a delightful idea. "No reason why I can't eat them both," he thought. "Allow me to escort you," he said. "You never know who might be lurking about." "Oh, you're too kind," said Red Riding Hood. Now we have two new words here on this page. "Allow me to escort you," he said. Now the picture is showing exactly what escort means. Escort means to take you somewhere or go along with you somewhere. Okay, so he's going to bring her to Granny's. And he says, you never know what might be lurking about. Now, talk about lurking. He was the one, let me go back. He was the one who was lurking right here. Lurking means you're kind of sneaking around, looking to get into trouble, looking for somebody to snatch. Beyond the forest, they came to a patch of sunflowers. Well, why not pick a few? Suggested the wolf. Grannies love flowers, you know. But while Red Riding Hood was picking a pretty bouquet, the clever wolf hurried on ahead to Granny's house. So this is the same, right? In the other story, Red Riding Hood got distracted picking flowers, and that's when the wolf snuck off. Oh, now look at this. It's only showing Granny's feet as a clue that she's there. Who is it? Called out Granny. Oh, it is I, your delicious, darling granddaughter, said the wolf in a high voice. Well, the door is unlocked, said Granny. Uh-oh. Ooh, now this Granny looks like she doesn't want to be messed with. Surprise, cried the wolf. Granny was furious at having her reading interrupted. Get out of here, you horrid thing, she cried. Now, we've been learning about synonyms. Do you know the word on this page that is a synonym for angry or mad? If you guessed furious, you're right. That's a synonym. Good job. But the wolf gobbled her right up. He didn't even bother to chew. Tasty, he said, patting his belly. So tasty. Just then he heard footsteps on the path. Here comes dessert. And losing no time, he put on Granny's cap and glasses, jumped into bed, and pulled up the covers. Who is it? He called out in his sweetest Granny voice. Well, it is I, your little granddaughter, said Red Riding Hood. The door is unlocked, said the wolf. Oh, look at Red Riding Hood was distressed to see her grandmother so changed. Why, Granny, she said, what big eyes you have. Oh, the better to see you with, said the wolf. And Granny, what long arms you have. Oh, the better to hug you with, my dear, said the wolf. And Granny, what big teeth you have. Uh-oh. The better to eat you with, my dear, cried the wolf. Ooh. Oh, no. And he gobbled her right up. I am so wicked, he said. So wicked. But really, he was enormously pleased with himself. And having enjoyed such a heavy meal, soon he was snoring away. A hunter passed by and was alarmed by the frightful racket. That doesn't sound like Granny, he said. Now I see quite a few new words here. Right here, a hunter passed by and was alarmed by the frightful racket. What do you think alarmed means? I think maybe like surprised, shocked, concerned. Like, what is all that noise, all that snoring? What's going on? And he said, that doesn't sound like Granny. And he was alarmed by the frightful racket. Now, do you think that means like a tennis racket? That wouldn't make sense. I don't see a tennis racket in this picture. What do you think racket means based on what we've read so far? Now we know he's passing by. He didn't see anything. He heard something. And that's what alarmed him. So a racket, that just means a lot of noise. If somebody says, what's that racket? Be quiet. That just means somebody's making a lot of noise. Okay. Oh, look, the hunter saved the day just like in the other one, right? So it seems like the events of the story are pretty much the same. And so the brave hunter jumped in the window, killing the sleeping wolf, and cut him open. Out jumped Granny and Red Riding Hood. We are ever so grateful, said Red Riding Hood. That wicked wolf won't trouble you again. Look, there's his feet, said the hunter. Well, it was so dark in there I couldn't read a word, said Granny. I love this Granny. She loves to read. Red Riding Hood promised never, ever to speak to another stranger, charming manners or not. And she never did. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that one. I love the illustrations in this story. So when we meet for our Google Meets meeting, I'm going to ask you to retell the story for me. So I want you to think about setting, characters, action. Where did the story take place? Who were the characters in the story? And what happened in the beginning, the middle, and the end? And you, of course, want to include the main events like Red Riding Hood getting lost, the wolf pretending to be the grandma, and tell how they were saved in the end and what was the happy ending. Because as with all fairy tales, there's always a happy ending.